Hi folks, it's your pal Mike Shea from slyflourish.com and twitter.com/slyflourish, here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy DM Prep. This is a weekly show recorded at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sundays, in which I use steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master to prepare for my D&D game. In this case, I am preparing for the game, my Ghosts of Saltmarsh game, which I'm running at my friendly local game shop. This show, along with all of the shows here on Twitch and all of the videos on YouTube and all of the articles on Sly Flourish, are brought to you by the backers of Sly Flourish on Patreon. If you would like to support Sly Flourish, please go to patreon.com/Sly Flourish. The links are all in the notes below. And help support the show. It helps keep the bandwidth going. It helps pay for the website bandwidth. It helps pay for all of the equipment that I need in order to record the show and all that sort of stuff. So if you want to support, that is one way to support the Sly Flourish empire. Let's see. Today, we are going to talk about Chapter 8 of Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which is the Styes. My group recently finished Chapter 6, the final enemy. And when they returned to Saltmarsh, they decided, I put two paths in front of them. They could seal the rift at the Endless Nadir, or they could take care of the threats in the Styes. And they said, we want to go to that S-hole town, the Styes, and take care of the problems there. So the final two chapters in the book go the other direction. You start with Tamarot's Fate, which is a standalone adventure in which you battle the pirates of the pirate vessel, the Tamarot, the undead pirates of the pirate vessel, the Tamarot. You're supposed to defend a building on an isle. We've had enough of buildings on isles in this campaign for me, so I'm just going to have them go straight down to the Endless Nadir. There's an island that is like the core island where the worshippers of Tharizdun and Tharizdun's minions have been growing. And beneath that island is a great rift in the ocean, and down there is the ruins of an abolithic city with a hole in it that leads to the abyss, leads to the plane where Tharizdun is currently held. So I think that will make for a fine, powerful, powerhouse conclusion to Ghosts of Saltmarsh, I think. And instead, we're going to take Chapter 8, the Styes, which mostly surrounds a murder mystery and strange cult happenings in this kind of crappy sailor town. And we're going to put that as the next chapter. And this is, in my opinion, a good place to close the loops on all of the things going on with the Scarlet Brotherhood and any other sort of plots, human-driven plots. It is also a good way to connect the Scarlet Brotherhood to the cult of Tharizdun, because you can take Mr. Dory, who's sort of the central villain in the Styes, and turn him into a bridge between the Scarlet Brotherhood and the cult of Tharizdun. He's Not Your Problem is here. Hello. If you are, we're broadcasting this live on Twitch. If you are here watching live on Twitch, feel free to say hello. We are going to talk about this chapter of this game, but we will also talk about all things D&D in this show, and the show should go about an hour. My party, when we ended, last session was their final battle in the final enemy. And it's not the final enemy. There's more enemies. So it's not a greatly titled adventure. And I wanted to sort of railroad them into facing off against the Baron. And I joked about this. See how big my cat got? Remember when that cat was a tiny little cat? And now she's a great big cat. Narrator, not the final enemy. There are final enemies. Tharizdun is a pretty good final enemy, if I do say so myself. So, I wanted to get them to face off against the Baron, and that way the Baron, they could take care of. I was ready to be done with the final enemy with that adventure, and the characters were kind of on the edge of like, well, we killed the priestess, and we stopped like a big ritual, and we killed the avatar of Sokola, so I think we're done. And I was like, there's one more room to go, and I don't really want them exploring like two more levels of this place, so I'm just going to sort of railroad them into the final battle against the Baron. And I had like the Baron and the Baroness and a bunch of Sahuagin and like that, one of those Sahuagin deep divers, the stealthy Sahuagin. in a pretty big battle, and they were already beat up pretty good from their previous fight. So they did find a statue that gave them the equivalent of a short rest, which helped them get some hit points and some other effects back. I also let the statue fire off one of the recent additions that was in that Unearthed Arcana. There was an Unearthed Arcana that came out recently that had a whole bunch of new character options that were not they were not sort of build based. They were class based. These like, most of them were like swap in and out abilities. And one of the abilities was that a cleric, when a cleric takes a short rest, the cleric can expend their divine, what are they called? Channel divinities. They can expend their channel divinities to restore first level spell slots. And it's a minor, it's not a super powerful ability, but it was enough that I thought it would be a good way to go. And given that they had burned all their spells out, I was like, I don't really want to make this I don't really want to bring Unearthed Arcana rules into my game, but I'd like to try it out. So a way to try it out is this statue will let them do it. And that's the only time. That's the only time that they get to do it. So, it was like sort of one of the options along with their short rest was that the statues sort of could convert unused channel divinities into first level spell slots. And then you got the equivalent of short rest, which gave you your channel divinities back. So, it was a little confusing for the player who hadn't read the Unearthed Arcana, but when he got it, he was like, oh, that's great. I got a couple spell slots back. And everyone else is like, hey, that's on that Unearthed Arcana. We should get that all the time. I'm like, nope, you get it for this statue. So if you want, this is kind of like here's a little tip. Here's a little trick for you. Man, both my cats are all needy right now. And the trick is, if you find like a house rule that you kind of dig, if you can tie that house rule to a specific effect inside the game, you don't have to do it all the time, right? You don't turn on the house rule permanently. You instead say, for this thing, it does it. So if there's an ability that you like, tie it to an item, right? If you want it to be more permanent, you tie it to an item, and that way it's sort of it's got a limitation on it, right? It's not something that a class gets all the time. It's something the class gets because of this thing. The other one is like whenever you can house rule behind the screen, whenever you can make something happen that doesn't really affect the characters directly, but affects the world, you can house rule that and then change it later. So I'm trying to think of what good examples are of that. But there are times where like you want to have a legendary effect. Let's say you decide that legendary actions should also essentially let legendary monsters cast the equivalent of dispel magic to get rid of effects that they weren't normally be able to get rid of. Well, maybe instead of that being a permanent thing you put on all legendaries, you just say, for this legendary, because of this crazy old idol that's sitting next to it, the crazy old idol lets them cast a spell magic on a thing, or lets them eliminate an effect, or have the equivalent of counter spell, right? So that, if you have, try to house rule behind the DM screen, because then you can tweak all day long and you can just change it and no one really realizes that it was changed, right? Or they'll say like, so I guess that worked back then. You're like, that worked back then. It doesn't work here. So that's a trick. But the other idea of sort of saying like, I'm going to take some of those Unearthed Arcana rules, but I'm going to apply them to specific instances where they can use them. And it's not part of a short rest anymore. It's because of that crazy idol. And it was an idol of the lizard folk, god. I forget the name. Semenya. There's a lizard folk god named Semenya, and there was a statue of Semenya that the Sahuagin had like buried, and they found the Semenya statue, and it sort of radiated this energy and gave them the equivalent of a short rest, and also let them restore their spell points. So that was a nice thing. So then they fought the Baron. That was really interesting. It was a big battle with a lot of fights, but there was a lot of story stuff that happened. Wow, my hair's crazy. Look at that crazy hair. So there was a lot of interesting story stuff that happened. And one of them is that the Baroness, who was the smarter of the Sahuagin, is terrified of the Endless Nadir. Terrified of Tharizdun and the cult of Tharizdun. They've been there. They've seen what was down there, and they fled. And that's why they attacked the Sahuagin and everything like that. So when they saw that one of the characters had Tharizdun-like powers, they freaked. When they saw like the ore that has like the Tharizdun ore in it, they freaked. They also, in the back of the chamber, had a crystal chained to a large plate that they had taken, this briny, ancient iron plate with covered in strange runes, and a crystal on top of that. And the crystal was sort of a raw piece of the other plane. And it looked like they were worshiping it, but they weren't worshiping it. They were kind of keeping a hold of it. They were kind of afraid of it. Well, one of the characters went over and started screwing with it, and it possessed him. And he was suddenly found himself possessed by, crazy Tharzadoon magic. And he gained like advantage on all of his attacks, but he constantly had to make like charisma checks. And if he failed the checks, he would start attacking his friends instead of his enemies. And meanwhile, he could start casting strange ass, weird warlock spells that he normally didn't have access to. And that freaked the Sahuagin out. So the priestess, who would normally have been a pretty hard foe, she's like cowering in the corner. And I think she ended up fleeing, and they let her go. She fled. Her and the Blade Master fled. And they just left the whole place. And all of the other Sahuagin left. And the Baron was killed. And they said, all right. And then they looked, and they're like, the whole place is empty. So they went back. And they went back. They returned to Saltmarsh, and they immediately, it was a big party that was going on, but they saw that there's like, there's a lot more vampires back here in town than we remember. There's like 4 that we can see, and we know there's more than that. And they visited Zolek in his new place, and they found out, I don't know, for those of you who were here last week, they found out that Zolek had dug up the Tomb of Horrors underneath the tower, Xenopus's tower outside of Saltmarsh. He said, I found this place and I'm really curious about it. And some of the characters started to like walk in, and they realized what it was, and they're like, I don't think we want to go in there. And so and Zolek is like, are you going to go in? Are you going to go in? I'd love to see you guys go in. And they're like, I don't think we're going to go in there. And even like one of the players is playing a character who's sort of like, happy-go-lucky, like, sure, I'll go in. And he's like, nah, I'm good. Like, I think I'm okay. Cause and I gave them the line, and this is a fine line that I said, which is like, you still, even though darkness is in Saltmarsh with Zolek and things like that, and even though you've got all these foes, and the gods are still smiling on you in the world, right? Like the gods still are there for you. They're not there for you in there, right? Like you're on your own. And last week I talked about the dare zone, that I sort of created a dare zone. Like I wanted to have a neat thing that's underneath Zolek's tower, or that Zolek's new place, which is Xenopus's tower. And I think putting the Tomb of Horrors down there was a fun way. It had the 3 doors, and they're like, oh man. And they saw the skull, right? And they're like, this thing again? Like, is that the Tomb of Annihilation? And like, that's not the Tomb of Annihilation. This one's older than the Tomb of Annihilation. This is the Tomb of Horrors. And like, oh my God. So that was fun. But they made the choice of like, well, maybe another time. And so I thought that was cool. They know it's there. He's not your problem. Says Saltmarsh is reminding me of Salem's Lot. I think, Salem's Lot is that would be a very good model for what happens to Saltmarsh when the vampires take over. I think that could work. The difference here is like, one of the things that's keeping it in check is that Zolek really does believe that he doesn't want to take over, right? He's kind of doing it, but he's not really doing it. Like he's taking a laid back approach. He was very curious about what's in the tomb down below. And I think he's still going to be kind of researching that sort of stuff, but he's more interested in that. He's not really interested in like taking over the whole council. Although I think like 3 of the 5 council members are on his side. So, he's not just going through the town, killing everybody and wiping him out. He is charming a bunch of people. There's a bunch of people that are under his charm effect at this point. So he's kind of taken over, but not because that's not his end goal, right? He doesn't need to take over Saltmarsh, but he's kind of doing it because it's a lot easier when everyone in town loves you than when everyone's trying to hunt you down and kill you. So I think that's a neat effect. But the players are like, yeah, I think we're going to have to go kill Zolek sometime. So who knows? Maybe that'll be, I don't know how we're going to approach that when I'm running the game. So Zolek did say, hey, by the way, he's like, I found some things out. I found out that, what's her name? Manistrad Copperlocks, her sister is a member of the Scarlet Brotherhood, but it's okay. She's charmed now, and she's still passing information to the Scarlet Brotherhood, but she's passing it through me as well. So I know what they know, and I haven't done anything about it yet. If you want me to do something about it, I can. But right now, I think things are good. And sorry, I'm tweaking my levels a little bit. So. And the party's like, yeah, that sounds fine. Like that's good. And just still tweaking my levels. Just want to make sure that things don't get too crazy. So hi Grant, how are you? You have the best emojis. Whoa, the cats. You see my cat almost topple over the thing? That was some craziness. So I think they're chasing each other. My cat doesn't know how big she is. So, yeah, so they talked to Zolek, and Zolek, yeah, so Zolek said, hey, you know, I've got information on what's going on with the Scarlet Brotherhood, but and I also know where the Sage is. If you remember that guy, Scaran Wavechaser, the dick who gave me this scar because Zolek was slashed by a silver dagger, and he goes, the guy that gave me that, he's in the Styes, and I'd sure love it if you went to the Styes and took care of that guy. There's a bunch of bad things going on in the Styes, but if you killed him, boy, you'd make me really happy. I hate that guy, and I don't want to go out there and do it. And so they said, yeah, okay, we're gonna do that. So they're heading to the Styes. What are you doing? Crazy cats. And that's where we're beginning today, is them heading to the Styes. So the adventure of the Styes, let's switch over to another screen here. So I've got my notes, and we're gonna pull up the Styes in D&D Beyond. So the Styes is so it's intended. Here's an interesting one. So I'm ignoring a few things, and these last two adventures, more so than the previous, what is it, 5? I guess it's 5 previous adventures. I am going to, why would you, oh my God, I dislike Twitch so much. And yet here you are. Thank you for coming anyway. So if you, so more so than the previous 5 adventures, I'm going to be customizing these adventures around the final parts of the story that's been going on. And I think that that's a good way to run these adventures, is once you've gone through the other ones, you sort of have a lot of storylines that are going on, right? And this is a good opportunity to take those storylines and really modify the final adventures in order to fit the storyline. So you know roughly, like, hey, there's an evil, there's a town that's kind of a scumbag town. It's sort of the inverse of the white, shining, beautiful Saltmarsh, which isn't white and shining because now Vampire's taken over. That there is a, I just had a really good idea. I'll talk about it in a minute. So you have so the Styes is supposed to be like the inverse, or can be like the inverse of Saltmarsh. It's not supposed to be because it's a totally different town. And there's a murderer, it all kind of starts with a murder, right? That there's a murderer who's around, and there's a guy who just got hung as supposedly the murderer, but really there's a dark cult. And the whole theme of the adventure, this is filled with spoilers, is that there is a cult to Tharizdun in the town, and there is a aboleth who's secretly running things in the town inside, and the aboleth is sort of connected to Tharizdun. The aboleth kind of likes Tharizdun, and I think the aboleth has managed to capture and sort of grow a young kraken as its as a villain. So the whole thing kind of starts with murder mystery investigation in this town, seeing the mark of seeing all this stuff, seeing all these murders, and then eventually kind of narrowing it down to let's do a quick summary. So part 1, adventure text exists. Okay, so part 1 is the thing. Murder mystery is about finding, they have an ally. The ally tells them that there's these murders going on. A guy was executed for him, but you're pretty sure it isn't one. And that it all kind of ties to one of the town leaders, who's a weird fella named Mr. Dory. They find out that Mr. Dory is actually a follower of Tharizdun, but also is twisted by an aboleth. And then they go down into a temple, and they find that they find Chul's down there, and they also find an aboleth down there. And then the final one, they actually go and face the juvenile kraken that's sitting there. So I'm probably going to yank out the kraken because I already have the whale, and the whale is going to be, I've got these things that I sort of want to drop in these final 2 adventures. And there's 2 things I want to have happen. One is I want to have a big sea battle. Leash the kraken, says Snark Knight. Exactly. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to replace the kraken with the black whale. With the Black Death, I think it's called, something like that. And it is a warlock whale avatar of Tharizdun that's swimming around in the ocean. So I'm going to have a confrontation with that. And I also want to have a big sea fight. And so the sea fight I'm going to put in the next chapter, where a pirate ship filled with undead pirates is going to attack our heroes on their pirate ship, and they'll have a nice sea battle. We need to have a sea battle. One of my players in my Wednesday game, when I said, like, so what kind of things, what are you enjoying and what would you like more of? And most of the time I go like, no, this is good and everything's fine. And then my one player's like, I'd like a sea battle. And I'm like, ooh, write that down. Like, first time I got feedback, go ahead and use it, right? Like, sea battle it is. So instead of having like the pirates attacking an island and everything, I can take most of that and then instead have that take place on pirate ships, which I think will be nice. So, I like the murder mystery stuff. I like, I think there's a fair bit of this that doesn't need to be changed too much. So the murder mystery is fine. The idea that there's these corrupt officials is fine. I think we could have some fun with these. I think we could have some of these fun with these Styes encounters. Most of the life in Styes and religion, I don't, it's fine. The layout is probably a good one. I wish I had printed this out. I don't have a map of the Styes, and I wish I had. So Pirates of the Azure Sea is in Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah. I should watch that movie before I run that battle, shouldn't I? So there's a whole lot about the Styes, which I think is always kind of funny because, like, we have a whole town. I don't really need a whole other town, but you never know. So having the whole town there, but really the big one is this murder mystery that's going on. And I think the strong start, well, let's see. So I might smash cut the adventure and have them arrive at the Styes, like have them show up. That might be, like read let's just get into D&D, right? And read that section. Let's see. There's I think there was some read aloud text here. Yeah. So there's some nice flavor text. So I'll read the flavor text and then see the hanging body. And then I will probably have them, I could take a random encounter and tie it together with the person who, the person who knows that they weren't murdered, that they weren't the murderer. I think that would be kind of an interesting. So that's how they could meet with, where is it here? This dude. Trantor? Is that the guy's name? Let's see. Murder mystery. Master Rephram, right? So I think Master Rephram, who is a priest, and maybe, let's see. Or is Master Rephram the dead guy? Yeah, Rephram is the guy. So, see the hanging body, Master Rephram being harassed by. Now, if we were going to go full improv mode, which isn't a terrible way to go, we would roll on one of those random encounters during the game to decide who's harassing him. I'm going to do some practice rolls. So we'll see. I'm gonna see if I can do some practice rolls and see what kind of events would occur. So these are the idea is that instead of the random encounter harassing the characters, it's going to be Master Rephram is being harassed by one of these groups, and he's so the press gang, 2 veterans and 8 thugs. That's a lot of people. Are trying to grab and silence Master Rephram, telling him that the murder has been found. You shut up now. You got to come with us, and we're gonna, let's see, kidnap the characters, sell them as deckhands to the captain of an undercrewed ship. So it's funny because it doesn't really say like where that leads. So if they're trying to grab Master Rephram, who are they taking him to? Could be the question, and it could be that they're trying to take him to Mr. Dory, who wants it. The murder's been solved and we want you silenced. Or it could be one of the other. if we wanted to kind of complicate things, you can have this council, and you could have that the council people are sort of against each other, right? There's 4 council members. Let's roll another one. So we have press gang grabs him up and tells him to silence him. 5 would be militia patrol that are, kind of doing the same thing. Guards and a bandit captain. 3 would be he's harassed by pickpockets, right? Spies. Why would you pick spies? Why would they be bandits? I don't know. One thing that I have a feeling these final adventures suffer from is a little bit of what Abbey on the Isle suffered from, which is we always need to have like challenge appropriate battles. And I think they changed up some of the things in order to have it, because it's an 11th level adventure, supposedly. I'm running it at 7th, so it doesn't matter to me. But like, they don't need to be spies. They can just be bandits. Like, spies should be spies, not beggars. Spies should be spies, not pickpockets. Like, don't use the spy stat block for pickpockets. Pickpockets should be bandits, right? Here they actually have beggars and then urchins. So I think it could be kind of fun. So we're going to roll randomly. And I'm going to do it during the game just to kind of shake me up, right? Just to shake up my world. I'm not allowed to prep. It forces me not to prep so much. And I'll play it by ear. We'll see how that goes. Normally that goes pretty well. So the scenes, we may, well, let's see. We know that we're going to have encounter, meet Master Referum. Learn about the Lamplight murders. And where will they go? So, this is kind of let's go back to our outline here and take a look at what the adventure expects. So the hooks are, the Master Referum wants to, let's see, shortly after a town, a dozen children chasing and tormenting an elderly, Fibo banishes the holy symbol at them, but the children and onlookers simply taunt him. I think I'm going to have Master Referum be a, let's see. Goliath Grave Cleric. A wee Joss. Master Referum is going to be a wee Joss. He's a worshiper of wee Joss, which is the same that Mac's character, the Goliath, is. And that way there'll be a nice tie. A nice tie to that. He hasn't gotten enough hooks, I don't think. So I think, yeah. Here's a nice reskinning trick, right? If you have a priest and you don't know what religion they are, pick one of the religions of one of the characters who hasn't really had a good tie, because now they have somebody that they have a friend, and it works well on the hook. Let's see. So let's go back to home. Basic facts about recent murders. Characters don't intervene as for protection of casting strength. Oh, yeah. So let's see. The main story is, like, I'm trying to figure out where they go when they're going through this adventure. What is their typical path of exploration? So they go to so they could go to the asylum. And then they go to the Hemlock Pit, which is Mr. Dory's place, right? And then they go to the Hidden Temple. And I think in my case, that's probably going to be where this adventure ends. They were attacked by Chules. Climax battle. Whisper appears a polluted sea, attacking heroes and save them. Characters learn how the Whisper is used. The gloom and despair of the Styes is an incubator for a juvenile kraken. It keeps to the west of the district. So there's an old, yeah. But I think that old Tharzadun temple, I'm going to pull that out, and that's what we're going to make the Endless Nadir. So those are kind of the big beats, right, of this one, those scenes. And Jarm is the murderer. So this is when we get to the important part, which is our secrets and clues. I forgot to review the characters, and I cheated, right? I already kind of included one of the characters. So the characters we have, and I don't remember who's going to be able to make it today. We're in the middle of the holidays, so sometimes people don't make it, but I think we've got enough. So we have Mac, Jerry, Goliath, Grave Cleric, follower of Monmerg, or follower of Weejas, and a former pirate and former member of the Pirates and Smugglers. We have Beth Sunspire, who is a human paladin of Procan. She's hunting the ink black whale who ate her parents, and she has a sword called the Sunspire that is now, it's an intelligent sword possessed by a planetar that is telling her that she's the one that's going to go face Tharizdun, and she believes it. Skylar Brian is a Aarakocra Storm Cleric. He had his head ripped off by a Vargul, but he got better. He doesn't like swimming, that's for sure. So he's going to not like some of this, but he's happy to fly around. Corvel is a human fighter, got knocked in the head, and believes he's a follower of Zagig. He has a magical ore, and because he got knocked in the head, the ore is having a lot of trouble trying to possess him. It's always sort of reaching into his mind, but half his mind is gone, so it can't really get purchased in there. So he's wielding this ore that is possessed by Tharizdun. We have Dave J. His sister is a warlock of the Chain God. Told them a lot about the Chain God and about the Endless Nadir and things like that. And they learned that the crystal, when they mount it on their ship, can lead them through the dark seas into the island, to the island where the rift of the Endless Nadir lies. That was something that came up last time. Dave is a Triton monk and fisher whose sister was a warlock of the Chain God but recovered and is now at the Temple of Procan. And we have Thurvin, a half sea elf storm sorcerer, also kind of an underplayed character. I need to put more hooks in. Hates Zolek, I still don't have enough character hooks for that one, so that's kind of a bummer. So I got my strong start, I got the scene. So now we need secrets and clues. This is going to be an important one for this adventure. So unlike a typical dungeon crawl, when you have like a city investigation, the secrets are going to come out more often. So it can't hurt to have more than 10. And these are really where like an investigation takes place. These are the clues that get dropped in. So Mr. Dory has gotten... Mr. Dory's gotten weird over the past couple of years. Mr. Dory is the golem. He's the leader of the Scarlet Brotherhood on the coast. What else? Scarron. Scarron Wavechaser the Sage is under Mr. Dory's protection, but fears him and fears the cult. So this could be a fun... Grant uses ropers for pickpockets. All of these strange rock formations in the middle of the town. And every time I walk by, I'm a little bit more pure. I'm a little bit poorer every time I walk by those rocks as the tendrils go in. Spies are also meant to be used as thieves because of high dexterity and other features. Like good thieves, maybe. Like the argument of like using a spy for a thief, for an exceptional thief, right? Not for a common thief. So if you've got a bunch of people that are just ripping off people on the street, those aren't your best thieves. A spy thief would probably be like a second story thief, right? They've been around. They're past being a bandit. So the spy stat block, let's take a look. Let's do a little side jaunt here. Spy. The spy is a challenge 1, so it's not super high, right? But a challenge 1 is roughly like the equivalent of a third level-ish character, I guess. Like a CR1 is the equivalent of what? It's the equivalent of 4 first level characters. It is the equivalent, so it's half. So about second level. They're about second or third level, right? They have sneak attack, they get 2 attacks, they have cunning action. So they're like a third level rogue, right? So they're not. Yeah, it doesn't mean they can't pickpocket. It just means that they're probably above picking pockets, right? Where your bandit, my generic, their dex is, not terrible. They're not trained in any of that stuff. So I don't know. I mean, if you want, they could be a pickpocket. It just seems like a spy. You're not, like, imagine having a whole group of 3rd level rogues coming after you. Like, these guys are, they're powerful. Like, I think, spies are kind of powerful. So I would stick to bandits. Is there anything between a bandit and a spy? If I click NPC, I can't, it doesn't work. So I don't know. I would stick with, if you're getting pickpocketed on the street, I would probably go with a bandit, as a stat block. And then give them a dagger instead of a scimitar. They probably have a little dagger, D4, and they do, 3 points of damage instead of whatever. And even if they're higher level, it's okay, right? 65 Live says, when I ran this, my group wanted to take out the whole cult and the town council. They tried starting a revolution and ended up killing 10 guards and framing the head constable for it. Eventually, Thornwell made a deal with them and they left town. I think one of them will go back when we have an in-game skip. I did prep them taking out each of the counselors though. Yeah. So that's kind of fun, right? If you're like, and you can really, unlike Saltmarsh, where you're going to have to go back here. They could wipe this whole town out and be okay. Let's see. The people in town have been following strange, weird sea gods. Some of the townsfolk have wandered into the sea and never returned. There's a strange temple, old temple under this town. Dagger says, I prefer my players don't go on a slaughter spree. If you're going to go on a slaughter spree, though, if you're going to go on a slaughter spree, the Styes is not a bad place to do it. So I think of the Styes. Somebody said, "Oh, Saltmarsh is like Salem's Lot." To me, the Styes is really in Innismouth, right? This is the Lovecraftian town where half the people there worship strange sea gods. This is Shadow over Innismouth, and if you've ever read that short story, it's a good short story. It's worth reading. And I'm going to steal pretty heavily from that, I think. What have I got? My cats are going crazy in the other room. Let's see. Wow, other secrets. So, Mr. Dory speaks. Mr. Dory speaks with another powerful entity. Oh, let's see. So the big one is that who conducted the murder? Who is the, Lantern Light murders? Jarm, a local was accused of the murders, found covered in blood. Claimed he had no memory of it. Jarm Lovage is his name, and he is dead. Capture the patrol with a bloody knife. Confused Fisher professes innocence. Said ravenous tentacle. Scrawled these images on the walls in the cell. And in the asylum where he spent his last days, and then he was... his sister and a local priest were enough to save him. So we have... Who's his sister? Eleanor. So we have Eleanor. These are NPCs. We'll stick them in our giant list of NPCs here. Whoops. Eleanor Lovage. And what does she know? Jarm was taken under the wing. Mr. Dory's aide. Went down to the old temple. That's a clue, right? Lots of clues. So, what else? Oh, the SB is in league. The Scarlet Brother isn't in league with the Cult of Tharzadoon, but Mr. Dory is. And because he's the ranking member on the side, they're in real trouble. Wow, I got lots of secrets. I could keep going with this, but let's stop for a minute and go. So, are there any other NPCs, important NPCs? We have Mr. Dory. We have let's see. We have Master. I don't like the name Master. We're just gonna call him Rephraim. Let's give him another name. Give him a last name. Thanks. Oops. Sly Flourish now has a search feature. So you do a search, you get right to what you want. Dog Cutter. Ooh, that's an evil one. Lightstone. We're going to go with Rephraim Lightstone. Rephraim Darkstone. Since he's a priest of Ouijas. Priest of Ouijas. Hello, kitty. You're a good kitty. And he's a friend of the Loverages. Doesn't believe that Jarm conducted the murder. Are there any other NPCs of note in this? Well, of course, we have Scarin Wave Chaser. Let's bring him up. He's got things going on. Look at all these NPCs. It goes on and on and on. And Scarin, a lot of things. Was the butler, secret member of the Scarlet Brotherhood. All of these things went away, and now he fears both. He fears Mr. Dory, his SB Masters, and the vampire. He's in a bad state. So I think it'd be kind of fun to take this guy who was the previous murderer of all these things, and he's in a bad spot. I think that he is willing to give up. And the question is, does he have anything that could help them fight the vampires? I think it would be really great if Scarin had something that could help the characters defeat or put Zolek in check. What would that be? What would he? What? And ideally, it would be information, right? It would be They have a sunblade, right? So that's, that already helps them. So an item, physically defeating him is one thing, but how would you, if you were like a super intelligent organization, what information could you have that would get rid of a vampire in Saltmarsh? It could be that you would send crusaders after him, that like they would mark, they would mark their emotional blackmail might be one that, like, he found out that, so those of you, I could use help from those of you who are familiar with the Greyhawk world. So what if he had a wife thousands of years ago, and he thought their wife was killed. He thought his wife was killed, but his wife is actually still alive, and she is somewhere else. And if they give that information to him, he might leave Saltmarsh. I'm trying to think of like information. Yeah. So in Salem's Lot, they deduced where Barlow slept during the day. That would be one. And maybe, yeah, that's not a bad piece of information. He knows where he knows where he sleeps. That would be interesting, that maybe he has contacts. He knows, right? That's some Nick Fury like stuff. When they give up one enemy for another enemy. Knows where Zolek sleeps. Knows where Zolek sleeps and has contact with Granny. Who is willing to bring Zolek into her, what does she have? Her harem? But what would she want that, she's pretty powerful. Why, other than getting another vampire is always good. I don't know. That's an interesting one. I think that he knows he has a way to get rid of Zolek. And his way of getting rid of Zolek is binding Zolek to, that they have to trick. They have to trick Zolek into binding himself to Granny Nightshade. And what would be an interesting, like, how would vampires be bound to Granny Nightshade? What kind of weird ritual would have to be conducted so that vampires would join a night hag? Night hags are abyssal. What's an interesting, like I wonder, like, what would cause that? Maybe he drinks her blood, and in doing so, that's kind of interesting, right? Like, maybe he says, like, I have something you can give him that will get rid of him. And it isn't blood, that it's her blood that he acquired from her. When they found out that there was I wonder what drinking abyssal blood would do to a vampire. Well, if you drink vampire blood, you become sort of a spawn of that vampire. If he drinks her crazy blood, he might end up becoming like bound to her, right? And now she's got her harem of vampires, and he's sort of bound to a heartstone. What do you have? Her heartstone. So what do night hags? Let's take a look at night hags. This is tricky. This is some tricky work here. That's why we're here, though. Do the hard work. Oh, come on. Night hag. Heartstone, luscious black stone, allows the night hag to become ethereal while in her possession. The touch of the heartstone cures any disease. Crafting a heartstone takes 30 days. Soul bag. When an evil humanoid dies as a result of the night hag's nightmare haunting, the hag catches the soul in the black. The soul bag can only hold one evil soul at a time, and only the night hag who crafted the bag can catch the soul with it. Crafting a soul bag takes 7. What if he gives them her soul bag and they have to kill him? They have to get him to shift into his state. And instead of returning to his coffin, he will go into the soul bag, which becomes hers. What if the Heartstone cures vampirism? If you drink the blood of a vampire, you become a vampire. So what if a vampire drinks the blood of a... So do we like... People in chat, do we like drinking blood of a night hag or capturing his soul in a soul bag better? I think I like soul bag. It fits the lore. Capturing the vampire's dark soul. So Scaran Wave Chaser has a way. Whoops. Oh boy. Now I've done it. Scaran Wave Chaser has a way to bring knows where Zolek sleeps. And he has Granny Nightshades. Which can capture Zolek's soul. Just how the whole thing with Zolek started. Yeah, so and like they'll capture it in the soul bag and they might go and plop it right back where it goes, and then she'll come and take it, you know, and now she's got his soul. This night hag. So that's pretty good. Are there any other secrets? So I've got scenes, I've got a strong start, I've got a couple of NPCs. I've got some locations from the town. How do I feel about this one so far with 8 minutes remaining? The answer is probably not great. Like, you know, I always think that, so to me, the sign of good prep is when you've gone through your steps, whatever your steps are. I have the 8 steps from Return that I follow, obviously. But other people have things that they do in order to prep for their games. And I think some people have read Return and they use the steps from Return and modify them to fit their own. And that's great. I think the end result is, do you feel confident? You know, do you feel confident to run your game? And if you have the things together to feel confident to run your game, then you feel confident. I know I feel most confident when I know where the game is going to start, and I feel like I have enough material in front of me to be able to improvise a game as it goes off in different directions. And I kind of feel that way. I could probably use more time reading about the town itself. That would probably make me feel better, I hope. The question is, you know, how do I feel about running it? And there's a lot going on. There's the 4 counselors. This is kind of a secret, right? This is, we can just grab this and stick it right in our secrets and clues. So that, you know, that helps. Styes encounters, I got Life in the Styes. This has, you know, some stuff. Oh, there's some with monsters. So I think with monsters, we're going to have some sea spawn, right? Is that what they are in Mordenkainen's? Yeah, I think there's a few of these guys lurking around, right? They're kind of dangerous and nasty. And isn't there another? There was a bunch of monsters that fit the kind of shadows over Innis mouth. And yeah, let's do a search for purple rocks, because I think there was a few monsters. So sea spawn was one. I thought there were other creatures in Mordenkainen's that were tied to the sea spawn. I know that there were the warlocks, right? What was the other one? There's the other guys that have like the weird big tentacles and their faces open up. Yeah, there's the Kraken priest. This makes sense for a Mr. Dory style, right? I think Mr. Dory makes more sense as a Kraken priest. There's That's a good one. So we like Kraken Priest, right? Yeah, the Deep Scion. Thank you, John Riss 18, Joris 18. That's the one I always forget. The Deep Scion. This guy. Look at that guy. Ugh. This is ugly. Look, his face is all open up. And they're pretty powerful, these guys. So I think there's some Deep Scions rocking around too. Whoops. Just grab the name. Those are some good monsters to keep on hand. Locations are in the book, so I'm not really going to worry about those. And let's see. What were the other locations? So we got the locations. We got Harbor Master. Let's just take a quick look. So Alchemist Place, temples that have fallen apart. Weird experiments going on in the Alchemist quarters. That's kind of cool. High quarter, local government, merchants quarters, general locations, Harbor Master. These guys probably all dealt with pirates. Fronden's Lamp, decommissioned stone lighthouse. Frother's Lamp would be a good location for a dungeon. We'll stick that in our locations. If we ever felt like we needed another place. Tentacle Face Aliens, yes. Marketplace, District Garrison, Council Hall, Reference Workshop, Dory's Warehouse is the, yeah. Rashland Manor. The mortuary and the asylum. Yeah, so the Hoppener's Asylum is another interesting place. So there's a few interesting places. What was the inns and taverns? I think, they always end up at inns and taverns. And I saw something about taverns and inns. Taverns are everywhere. Yeah, place is terrible. I need some really nasty tavern names. The Goblin Spur. Goblin Spur. Dog Cutters. Yeah. The Dog Cutters. That's a good one. The Red Belly. There's some nasty tavern names. So we're good. Yeah, so how do I feel? I don't know. Town investigation stuff is always, it's tricky. There's a lot of different directions they could take. And I think that having some NPCs in mind, having that start, having a lot of secrets and clues. But I'm going to have to play a fair bit of this by ear, and I'm probably going to have to move. I got to be ready to move pretty quickly. So we'll see how it goes. We'll figure it out. Is there any other, what others, just going back to secrets. Are there other, if they're starting their investigation, what will they find out? That it's very likely that Jamie Jarm actually did the killings. It's very likely that Jeremy actually did the killings. That doesn't mean it. Why are the killings taking place? Is it to feed the, is there a ritual taking place? The murders were what did Mr. Dory do? To feed power to Tharzadoon. The temple to Tharzadoon, The ancient temple to Tharizdun would make for a great Dwarven Forge setup with my new Cavern Deep Dwarven Forge stuff. So I might build that out. That might be a fun thing, and I could use that for both my groups. I'm not going to build that today. It won't be ready today, but I think it'll probably be 2 or 3 weeks for this adventure, and I think that would be a fun one to build. Well, it is 11 o'clock. I think I've got a fair bit of material, so we'll see how this goes. Open-ended adventure is always a little tricky. I don't feel as confident about this as I do like when the characters go into a dungeon, and I know that all I have to worry about is what's around a dungeon. I think that's one of the reasons, and I read something about why dungeons make for such good D&D adventures, and it's because there are options and limits. Like, you can go in different directions and do different things, but there's only so many different directions and different things you can do. When you go to a town, there's a lot of stuff. We saw folks in chat talking about how their players just wanted to kill everybody in town, and another group, they want to investigate everything. So it can be pretty tricky. But I think that having those focused areas, dungeons really work well like that. And we have a couple in here, right? We have the Temple of Tharizdun, and we have the Mr. Dory's residence as being specific places. The town, it's 65 Live says the town has a population of 12,000. Not mine. It's a small place. So I'm gonna, there's only a few hundred people. It's gonna be smaller than Saltmarsh, I think, when I run it. So treat the city like a very large dungeon. Yeah, but very large dungeons are hard to run too. So I think kind of steering them towards a couple of big locations like Mr. Dory's place, which I need to read up on. And I think one thing is I read the Tharizdun or the Tomarant's Fate first, and I really ought to give this some more time. So maybe before my game, I will spend some time sitting down with a book and sort of reading over the locations that exist in both those places, and I'll feel better about it. So we will see. So I want to thank everybody for coming to Twitch chat today, and for those of you watching live on YouTube, thank you very much. And we will see you guys next weekend and see how things went. So get out there, have some fun, and go play some D&D.